Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of our program. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Barbara Carneiro, who is with Word Revolution. Barbara, welcome to the program.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, Mike.
You're welcome. And so give us a little bit of your background and what your company Word Revolution is and what you do.
Sure. Well, I started as an entrepreneur many years ago out of need, really. I think life kind of took me that way, that route. And in some point in time, I just got really interested in design, communication, marketing. My degree is in communication, but I found this little path with web design as kind of a starting point for me. So started back in 2001, and it ended up growing faster than I expected. So got myself in a place where I had to hire people and, start growing. So Word Revolution became, in some point in time, an agency. And what we do nowadays is mostly communication, marketing, web design for churches and ministries. We do work with many different companies, but that's kind of our passion niche. So those are the ones that we really enjoy working with, and that's what we do.
And that's incredible because I know that if you started an agency for pick any business niche, right? A lot of people would come to that with a lot of background of, I did this in a previous life, so I can do some marketing and writing and communications. But so many times in ministry and churches, they come out of Bible college and with their MDivs, and all of a sudden they don't know how to communicate in a marketing standpoint. They know how to communicate a sermon and a message, but it's a whole different ballgame. Is that what you found as well?
Exactly, yeah. So in my experience, I think one of the hardest questions that we ask pastors when we work with churches is, who are you targeting? They absolutely hate that question because, by nature, the DNA of a church is to reach as many people as they can. So they don't really want to put a limit to who they're trying to reach. But when it comes to communication, whatever you do, you're communicating, period. So not communicating is communication at some point, of some sort. And we try to sometimes just rephrasing helps because, what I say to the pastors most of the time is, you have limited resources, you have limited people, limited money, and obviously limited amount of time. So who are you better prepared to serve? And just by asking the question differently, it puts them at ease. And it makes it easier for you to understand as well that even if I want it, I can't reach everybody. So who can I reach first? And then even if I have, 3-4 groups of people that I'm interested in reaching, which one is my highest priority? Because the best way to organize it by saying, okay, this is the taking the example of churches, if you have a solid kids ministry, then you are very well prepared to serve families with young kids. So we try to address it from that perspective. But communication is definitely something that you do whether you want it or not.
Yeah, and you made an interesting point, and from a business standpoint, it's huge to consider your target audience. And I teach marketing strategy for 3 universities, and literally this morning I was in one of the discussion forums, and the discussion question was about segmenting. And, it's talking about how, what are your demographics, your psychographics, and geographics, things like that go into your segments. Well, it can get confusing because it's like, for a church, we want the geographic is within a 2-mile, 5-mile radius of our church. Okay, check.
Right.
Well, what are the psychographics? Well, people that feel the need for inclusion and being accepted, and they want some positive messages, and they want spiritual impact, and of course the end result is salvation. So we understand that. But the problem with a lot of businesses and what you just described with churches is they feel like I want to be all things to all people because everyone needs, our message. But here's something interesting. My father-in-law is pastor of our little Baptist church here in town, and he has said that in his research he's seen this author or this research statistic say that a pastor will have the most impact with people that are 10 years older than him and 10 years younger than him. And so the interesting thing is, in depending on what size of churches that you're thinking about, you walk into some churches and the whole demographic is 70 years old and older, or the whole demographic is 30 years old and under, or whatever the case is. Well, what if you did want that balance? And what if you did use that 10-year older and 10-year under idea? Well, maybe for a certain campaign, or at least a certain section of your website, or a section of your messages that you're going to put out, maybe those need to be focused on the kids ministries, the young adults, the senior citizens. So I think that mindset is so important when a church is thinking about what are people seeing when we're communicating.
Exactly. We hear that a lot. I do believe it's the natural tendency for us to reach everybody. And in some cases, I don't think business owners have been challenged to think about their audience as much as I would like them to. So we ask questions, and sometimes asking questions is what allows them to think about their businesses or their churches, and just understand that we always have labels, right? Everything that we do is perceived in a certain way. But most of the time we are inside our own bottles trying to read our own labels. And so everybody that comes across your business or comes across your church will have a perception of what you're doing. So if you're too generic, then chances are it's going to be just this gray message coming in front of my eyes that I won't even notice. So by selecting a focus, what you're saying is we're going to be intentional about what we do. That may, focus more on a specific group or two, but it doesn't mean that other groups can come. And a good example that I give them all the time is Chick-fil-A, right? I ask them, okay, well, who do you think Chick-fil-A is targeting? and they always look at me and start wondering. I said, well, Chick-fil-A is targeting families with young kids. They have a playground. They have tables with, booths with 4 spots. And they really make it, if you think about Cow Day, I think they have some sort of event that you can come dress up as a cow. I mean, I can't think of any 50-year-old that would just wake up one day and just say, I'm just going to dress up as a cow and go to Chick-fil-A for.
Well, let me tell you, I was at Cow Day a couple of weeks ago here in town, and there were 60 and 70-year-olds, and I mean, it was everyone from infants. I mean, it's a big deal, but I know exactly what you're talking about. That is a good example.
Right, and most likely with their families, and that's the point. So they're probably coming with their families. It's because Chick-fil-A has created this. Their audience is families. Not to say that if you're single you can't go, or that if you know what I'm saying. So, but they have a specific audience in mind. So these kind of events that they create are focusing on bringing your family together and coming together to do something fun. Every business has a purpose. So looking at your purpose will sometimes give you that guidance on, who can I better serve? Who am I better prepared to serve, even as a business, independent if you're a church or a business,
So here's what I would like to ask. I'm sure that you're the only church communication company on the face of the planet. So the question is, why start another one? Because I know that there are plenty. What made you start it, and what is the purpose, and really what's unique about the way you do it? Because yes, we know that there's other people and companies that do the same thing. So why start another one? And then a follow-up to that is, what sets you apart? What's your competitive advantage? What's unique about you?
So, I'm a person of faith, and I believe that it's a calling for me. So that's kind of like the first half of the answer. The second half is I do believe there is space for more than one person in a specific market. In fact, I find that collaboration is what really allows us to grow. the fact that the niche is validated. If somebody's already working as a church communication agency, that means it's validated. So that means that I can invest in that niche. I'm not the first one to give it a shot. But I do value collaboration. I tend to reach out to people that would normally be seen as my competitors and see what they're doing and share, because I find it that we can grow together instead of just trying to push somebody else down. You know what I mean? So I have an abundance mindset. I do feel like there's enough business out there for all of us. And if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have so many cooking magazines, you have cooking magazines of every shape and form. That shows me that there are micro niches that haven't been explored. So for us, the other part to that question is what we have seen over time working with churches is that there is indeed a difficulty with the budget. So churches have a challenging way of dealing with budgets. Most of the time, it's not something that a CEO comes in and says, let's do it. It needs to go through a board or a group of elders, or it's more of a committee decision. And so in some point in time, I found myself wondering, how can I come alongside and help? And we thought about a training program where instead of executing these marketing strategies or communication strategies, we would teach them and have them implement them. So I think the unique part about us is that I'm not as focused on selling something to the churches we work with as much as I'm interested in growing together, almost like a win-win-win situation. So we have decided to start a training program where we just kind of change the mindset. I find that churches will understand if we take the time to explain why it's important, why communication is important. So every time we've had the chance to sit down with the church and say, hey, this is why this matters. They've always understood it. It's never been a case where the pastor looks and says, oh, that just sounds so off. So what would happen if instead of me trying to sell them yet another website, what if I could teach them the basics of the strategic part that goes into anything they do? Because you're not going to believe the amount of churches out there that are doing, for example, social media just because everybody else is doing, and they just spend endless hours creating graphics, uploading stuff that nobody engages with. So my question for them is always, why are you doing this? And the answer inevitably sometimes is, well, everybody else is on social media. So having the ability to show them that there should be a purpose for everything they do. Otherwise, it's better not to spend your time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what makes me think of a question is when you say church communication, you mentioned website. If a church was listening to this or you're talking to them about your services, and they go, well, we got a website, and it could be better, I'm sure, but what else? What are some other things that you typically are doing to help a church with their communications that then is impactful in a positive way for them?
Yeah. So I do find that the website is an important piece because if you think about the way churches reach out to their communities, no matter what, even if it's a friend inviting you, you're going to check that person's website. I mean, you're going to immediately grab your phone and check out where's this person inviting me to, right? It's natural for us to have, now that we have all this access to information, we can just go in and check out before we even go through the doors. And so I do feel like the website is an important piece that the church shouldn't ignore, but we actually tend to see this more from an engagement standpoint. And you may laugh about this one, but I used to call this my IKEA floor plan design. And the reason why is because when you go through an IKEA store, you're forced to follow whatever design they created. You have to go through the living rooms and then the bathrooms and the bedrooms. And it's designed in a way that you need to follow that particular path. And it can be particularly challenging for men. I know at least my husband, he doesn't like to follow all the aisles. He wants to go where he needs to go and leave. And I'm more of I need to go through every single aisle. So anyway, long story short, the way they design their floors is to create an engagement that is intentional. They want me to see this first and that second, and then something else after this. And when I think about any customer, any visitor, anybody that is engaging with a business organization, we no longer see this as one individual touch point. There's an engagement workflow that happens. So if I get invited by a friend and I check your website, and then next week I see a sign from your church on the street, and then maybe I actually come in and fill out a connection card, and then somebody calls me, and then somebody sends me an email, or I receive a letter in the mail. These engagements shouldn't be isolated. There should be a sequence to it. So what we try to do is kind of trace together with the church what kind of engagement they want their visitors to have. Smaller churches may not have a lot, but most of them will have some sort of greeters at the door. Some of them will have maybe greeters in the parking lot. Some of them will have a kiosk or some sort of info center where people can ask for information if they're visitors for the first time. But all of these points should be a part of a bigger plan, if that makes sense. I don't see marketing activities as individual things anymore. We need to see it in the context of everything else that is going on. So,
yeah, it's really interesting. Have you ever heard of the customer journey?
Correct, and that's what we just changed it. We just changed the name because, again, churches have a tendency to react negatively to words like marketing and customer. So
I know, but come on. But here's the thing. I think you said something really smart. If you can take some of those basic business strategies and say, here's how it works in business, and here's how we're going to implement it for you in the, and change up the word. So instead of customer journey, we're going to call it a, what a church
we call it
type
engagement workflow. Yeah.
Yeah, however we want to call it, but relating it back to the business, proven, tried and true business world helps to validate it for the church to go. It's not some harebrained idea; it's proven and research tested. And then, now this is how. So they come to our website, and then first they might want to look here, and then go here, and then download this, and then get on our weekly message podcast series, and then maybe at that point they're going to come visit our church because they've seen I think that's super, super important.
Yeah, and we have been able to sometimes speak to pastors and show them that people coming to the website have a purpose. They have something in mind, and even though they may not know, they're asking this question: what is in it for me? What is in this for me? And it doesn't have to be a website. It could be any piece of marketing, collateral, brochure, events, whatever that thing is. And what we have found is that more often than not, the pastors aren't answering that question. The church is not answering that question. And I feel this applies to businesses as well. But what we've noticed is churches will have websites where you will find, an endless list of events, or, hey, here's the next sermon on John that we were doing. And if you're coming for the first time and you're not a believer, those things may never relate to you. Like, I'm not going to go search for a Bible study if I'm not even.
Because those aren't the words I'm using. Exactly. I might be using the pain point of my life stinks. What do I do about this broken relationship? And then.
Yeah, so just addressing those issues, and I'm not opposed to churches promoting their Bible studies, but that doesn't have to be on the first page, because the people that will be looking for those, they will know where to find them.
And it's kind of like the old speaker. I heard this from Brian Tracy years ago. He asked, "What's everyone's favorite radio station?" And people were, it's W blah blah blah. Well, in reality, it's WIIFM. What's in it for me? And if people from the church websites can be thinking about what's in it for the people coming to my website, what do they want to see? Not Bible study Friday at 9 a.m., but, what would the words be and the communication approach be that would really impact them to go, ooh, I need the answer to that. And they click on that, and it leads them to, our Bible studies Friday at 9 a.m. will address the blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, cool.
Exactly. So having that type of conversation is, in my opinion, what has allowed us to realize we don't need to just print yet another brochure for a church. Yep. We need to help them change their mindset in a good way, not because their mindset is they want to do things incorrectly. It's just because nobody has ever presented to them the benefits or the reasons why. And this comes down to psychology, like you were saying. Every time you get in touch with anything visual, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look for, your eyes are going to go from top left to bottom right naturally, either if you want it or not, unless you are in some different countries where they start reading from the right. But this to say that naturally your eye is going to go top left to bottom right. So there's a lot of psychology of color, for example, involved in everything we do, that we communicate. And I just feel like pastors don't need to know these things. They have other things to do. They have a different call, and business owners as well. But all of this information is available and is valuable for those that are communicating, selling, or wanting engagement, which is the case of the church.
Well, Barbara, I love your whole approach. It's innovative, it's fresh, and I really appreciate that, because pastors and churches need to do what they do best, and then your services will help them look better doing it to attract more people. So what is the best way that people or churches could learn more about your programs?
Sure. So our agency website is wordrevolution.com, WORD revolution.com. My email is barbara@wordrevolution.com. And that's where we have, our main agency work in a do-it-for-you kind of thing. If you are interested in the training program, then our website is 412lab.com. And that's where you can sign up for a spot. We're opening the next groups in September of this year. So the goal is really to create a lot of collaboration between church communicators or lead pastors, and just, come alongside and say, this is what I've learned in all of these years of experience. Let me help you skip all that trial and error.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you so much for coming on and talking about your business and your services. And I encourage people to take a look and see how you can help them out. So thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.